How do your days go with your child? Do they sometimes zone out and miss instructions? Do they get distracted during tasks? Do they get so distracted in the morning that just getting ready to get out the door is chaos and frustration? And I'm saying them as being your child, but this could be you as well. There are many, many adults with attention struggles as well. And they can present in different ways, which we're going to be diving into today. When they do present, though, it can be frustrating when it's happening to yourself, as well as when you are experiencing it with your child, when you really need them to stay on track so that you can get out the door in the morning without that frustration, so that they can focus in school and not get into trouble and not being perceived as being a behavior issue, a child with behavior struggles at school, being able to excel in things. Oh, there's so many things with attention that really do affect our child and our day-to-day life. And that is what we are diving into today. Welcome to the Kids with Big Emotions podcast. I am your host, Andi Clark. When I first started learning about executive functioning, it was a game changer in understanding and supporting my son with his big emotions. I felt like I had finally found a huge missing piece of the puzzle. And now I want to share that with you in this executive functioning series. This series dives into the foundational layers of executive functioning skills. These skills aren't just about getting organized or managing time. They're the backbone of how we regulate emotions, which is directly tied to the big feelings our kids experience, like anger, anxiety, and frustration. Think of executive functioning like an orchestra. Imagine the conductor trying to guide each section as he's struggling. The strings come in too early. The horns are playing too loudly. And while some parts are on track, even one or two sections being off can throw the entire piece out of harmony. That's what happens when the conductor of our executive functioning system struggles. It impacts how everything flows together. Mood regulation, social cues, how we make it through our day with focus, planning, organization, and more. Through this series, we'll break down the sections of the executive functioning orchestra, helping you understand how to bring them into harmony so your child and your family can thrive. Let's dive in. So, attention is the ability to refocus on specific information or tasks, filtering out distractions. So, if we really think about this, it's not exactly the definition of ADHD. I have here where attention struggles, they can show up as being hyper-focused, where I know this is my one child, where he becomes so hyper-focused on pen tapping or fingers tapping on the ground or somebody sighing or chair squeaking or other noises elsewhere that he can't focus on the work he needs to do. He can't focus on completing a test. He gets so frustrated and angry and we might have an outburst. That's attention, right? If we go back to the definition is the ability to refocus on specific information or tasks and filtering out distractions. So that is attention. And attention is also what we kind of know as ADHD, in the sense where they're struggling to focus, where they can't sit still. It can be one or the other. They may be able to sit still, but can't focus on the task at hand. And it can cause so many struggles. I know for me, I don't have ADHD, but what I do know for myself, and so I know this is happening to many others, and I've read research on this, is with screens. I am good when I'm not on a screen. That being said, if my phone is beside me and I keep looking at my phone, then the same thing happens, that I get pulled into all these things. And I was trying to figure out why in the mornings it was taking me so long to do my workout, which is not long, like 20 minutes, half hour, if that, to do my workout, to get breakfast, clean up the kitchen, and get upstairs was taking me like an hour and a half in the morning, sometimes 2 hours. And I realized it's because I kept picking up my phone. I thought, oh, I'm just going to put on a podcast. But I kept getting pulled. My attention keeps getting pulled, and I'm not able to refocus quickly on what I am doing, on being able to, okay, I need to row. I need to do this next exercise, cleaning the kitchen up, getting my breakfast, all of these things. I was really losing focus on, and I wasn't able to be efficient on them because of being pulled in on my phone. I also have had to create things for myself in the office where when I get in and I get in front of my screen, I instantly want to open up Facebook and start scrolling and get sucked into the vortex, or, hey, I'm just going to work on this quick, or I want to look at this. Did I get any emails? Did this happen? Do I need to check on this? And so I've had to start creating a formula that works for me, a plan that works for me, where I have these things that I know that I need to focus on. I have it written right beside me where I keep looking at it. I have different cues that help me stay focused so that I can really go into the office and get done the things that are my needle movers, the things that are really going to have an impact in the office to get things done today. I did not do well at it this morning. It is 10:30 and I've been in here since 9 o'clock. And my thing was that I needed to record this podcast episode. And it's been an hour and 40 minutes doing all kinds of other things. And I'm like, no, I need to focus on this. This is what I need to get done. So this can affect all of us in so many ways to different degrees. And since screens actually have affected me so much to the point where it does impede my productivity, I've had to create plans for it. This does not mean I have ADHD. It means that whoever is in charge of the user experience, of pulling you in, the people that they pay really, really big money, the psychologists that are paid by all of these apps in order to keep you on their app longer, are doing a great job. That's what that means. That does not mean that I have ADHD. So, thing with ADHD is oh my gosh, there's a client of mine, an adult, who feels like they're failing. They feel like they really can't do things. They feel like they're not good enough because they know they have ADHD. They know that following a plan is really hard for them. They know that making decisions and analyzing things to figure out what needle movers they need to work on in their office are tough for them. They know that their time sense, their pacing is not on track. They know that they don't often catch themselves when they're focusing on the wrong things, when they're making mistakes on where they should have their attention, and they're not self-correcting. And this individual has worked their entire life trying to figure out tools and strategies to help themselves. And here's the thing. We have 3 different levels of executive functioning skills. There's 3 buckets for executive functioning skills. I'm going to describe them as if like they are a fire. So in order to build a fire, a campfire, we need kindling. Without that kindling, we can't start a good fire. And then we need to put these logs on that fire. And these logs are what will sustain the fire and create these flames. So the third thing are the flames, what we see. And so when we see somebody with ADHD, we think, oh, they need better plans. They need to learn how to handle a plan better in order to hand in your homework, to know how to do your assignments, to know what to focus on in your business, to know how to get ready in the morning. You need a better get ready in the morning plan. And you need to learn how to make better decisions. You need to work better on this time sense and pacing. You need to work better on your organization, your decision-making, your self-correcting, all of these things. The thing is that these are log and flame skills. These are not your kindling skills. Kindling executive functioning skills are perception, which we spoke about in the last episode, in the last lesson. It's attention. We have verbal and nonverbal working memory and inhibition, which are going to be the next lessons that I am going to be going over with you, the next podcast episodes. Inhibition is being able to stop yourself even when you know. Many people with inhibition struggles know the consequences. They know what they need to be focusing on, but they can't stop themselves from doing what they're doing. Kids can't stop themselves from getting off of video games in order to do their homework. We can't stop ourselves from getting off our phone in order to get our workout done, get our morning breakfast done, and kitchen cleaned to get into the shower and start our workday. We can't stop ourselves. So this is inhibition. And these skills, these kindling skills, are the ones that we need to work on first before we can even notice when we are doing things that are not where our focus should be, before we can self-correct, before we can work on time, sense, and pacing, before we can start executing a plan, before we can start deciding what are our needle movers, before we can start analyzing and figuring all of this out. We need to first work on those kindling skills. And this client that I'm working with right now feels like such a failure because everybody that has been working with them, and I see this with the kids that I work with as well, is people are expecting them to either just be able to follow a plan if they give it to them. People are expecting, like we expect, okay, we're going to give our kids a plan in the morning for what they need to focus on, like make bed, get dressed, brush teeth, do your thing, like eat breakfast. And they're going to be able to follow and execute this plan because I have it laid out. I've maybe laid it out in pictures really nicely for this child. And I'm going to expect that this child can do this plan, or for an adult to be able to do this plan. The thing is the base skills, these base skills that we are dealing with now, these foundational kindling skills, are what you need to even support the logs, to get those logs even burning in order to create that flame. And these are the foundational skills. And if we don't work on them, then we cannot make an impact on your attention, on your ability to focus and help kids with ADHD, right? We often focus so high level, or we are focusing on attention in the way that it needs to be focused on for that individual child, which might be different, which is different for different kids. The same frame, like I have different frameworks that I teach in the support circle. And those frameworks you will try with your kids or try with yourself, and one will work better than the other. That being said, each framework also has a cognitive ladder. And a cognitive ladder, what that is think of a ladder, literally think of a ladder. Think of how many steps are on that ladder. And we want that kid or that adult to be able to realize what they should be focusing on, being able to focus on it, follow the plans of the steps efficiently in a good time, sense, and manner, and be able to really make headway in their day in the office, with their kids at school, with getting yourself out the door in the morning, with the activities that we have, all of these things. And that's our end goal. That's the top of the ladder. Quite often we start on 2 steps high, too many steps. We might start on the 5th step or the 10th step to get those kids there, depending on the child. Sometimes it's 4 steps to get them to where we want in the goal. And we're not starting on the 1st step. And if the child can't get on the 1st step, or the adult can't get on the 1st step, they're going to feel like they're failing. They're going to feel like they're failing. They're going to feel over and over again like these kids want to be able to focus. These kids do not want to be a behavior problem. They don't want to be frustrating their parents. They want to be getting it right. And when they are given, so many of these stairs of this ladder are skipped and the child fails, they continue to feel like a failure. And this starts creating traumas for these kids. It creates this imprint, this limiting belief that I'm a failure, I am not good enough, I'm not ever going to get this. Why can these other people get this all the time and I can't? Why are they telling me this is easy and I should be able to do it and I can't? We start getting so many limiting beliefs in ourselves. And we start thinking that this is just how we are and this is how we're always going to be. And that is not true. Not true at all. The problem is that we're not making the steps easy enough, simple enough. We're not going slow enough for the pace that that child or that adult needs in order to be successful with the first step. And then we build the second step slowly at a pace that works for them, at a level that is ready for them. And they start working their way up the ladder, but they can't even get onto the ladder if you want to start them at the fifth step. And that's what most coaching does. I know that my client has been working with a coach and is trying these different programs and trying all these things, and every step is way ahead of them. They can't even get on this friggin' ladder, and they feel like they are the problem, and they're not. The problem is that nobody has given them that first step on the ladder. So from anything today, I just want you to know how important it is to not start with the higher level executive functioning skills, not start with throwing plans at these kids, no matter how beautiful they are, no matter how visual they are. If it's too many steps for this child, they're going to feel like a failure and you are going to be frustrated as the parent. And it's very important to get them to that step where they can even do the first step, the first thing, which might be make their bed. Yay, you did it. Okay, you made your bed. Yay. They don't even know that that's a step in a plan. And then you can maybe start helping them get to the second one. Getting dressed has so many executive functioning skills involved in it. Decision-making, planning, organizing. Like there's just so much involved in that is just broken up into almost 10 steps alone just for getting dressed. Just for getting dressed. 10 steps at least, right? We have planning, decision-making, analyzing. We need to analyze the weather. What's the weather going to be like? What do I need? What mood am I in, right? How do I feel for me? Like, am I feeling a little bloated today? Do I need to wear my bloated clothes? There's so many different things, different decisions we make just for getting dressed. And the plan, what do you put on first? Some kids may not realize that. They may not have perceived that the underwear goes on before their pants. And that's why some of these kids come down without everything on, right? That starts with the perception. So these are all different skills that we need to be working on first with them and breaking them down one at a time so that they don't feel like a failure. And they're succeeding at a pace that works for them so they can start climbing the ladder. Here's the thing. Just like with perception, we talked about, you may find with a child that, their attention was all over the place. And then you might find with a growth spurt. I find age 10 to 11, and this isn't ingrained in anything. This is not for every child. This is just one of my kids, not both of my kids, that going into age 11, there's been a shift. And I noticed it's his executive functioning skills. Now, is this because we've been working on it for like a couple of years? Probably. That's helping, but it seems like it really clicked all at once, which I'm wondering if that's also a piece of his brain with the maturation of his brain and the executive functioning piece of his brain that, another piece clicked for him as well because of his age. So some of these kids may grow out of things. You may find when they were young, they were so scattered, and then middle school might be fine. And then high school, forget to hand in homework again, struggling with assignments, struggling with just simple tasks, getting ready to get out the door again, whereas they may not have for a while. And that's when a different stage of life comes that adds more stress. Stress and executive functioning are like a vicious cycle. The more stressed you are, the more your executive functioning system struggles. The more your executive functioning system struggles, the more stress that's placed on your body. And it becomes this vicious circle. So kid going away to university, so much stress on them changes. So many executive functioning skills now need to be adjusted, need to be, next leveled. And that taxes their stress system, which then brings more stress on them. And you might start seeing that attention just starts getting worse again. And I know with pregnancy, this was one for me. I really struggled in pregnancy. My executive functioning system went tanked during my pregnancy because pregnancy really taxed me out. And so it was really with every stage, you may find that things you've worked on, they might kind of outgrow them, or you might work through certain stages with them and they've developed the skills for that stage. And then you get to the next stage and they need to up level their skills. They need to maybe learn some more steps of the ladder, or stress has brought them down a couple of rungs on the ladder that they're now struggling with some of those steps again. So as with perception, we're going to go through some of the intake form questions that I have when you come into, when I'm working one-on-one with a client, or when I'm working in my support group, my support circle. I love when everyone fills out this intake form, as I can just pull it up quickly as you ask a question, either in the group anytime, 24/7 written, or if you come to a live call or ask a question for a live call, while I'm looking at your question, I can look at this form and see a little bit more as to where your child is struggling a little bit more on the executive functioning front. And it really, really helps me be able to dial in more with your kid. All right, so let's dive into these intake form questions. And this is where on the intake form, we answer with true, somewhat true, never, or in the past. And in the past is, as I said, was this something that your child had in the past? We just spoke about this. And maybe now there's a new, and it hasn't reappeared. That could be that their executive functioning system matured. It could be that you help them a lot with their executive functioning system to support that. You might also find that something comes back later on and you'll know, oops, they went down a couple of rungs in the ladder, or they need to go up a few more steps in the ladder because of the stage of life that they're in. That skill requires more skills now. So as I'm saying these, think about true, somewhat true, never, or in the past. Needs directions repeated multiple times to follow them. True, somewhat true, never true, or in the past. Completes the first part of multi-step directions, but misses later steps. True, somewhat true, never true, or in the past. Struggles to pay attention during class or conversations, especially if the topic isn't interesting. So you may find people with attention struggles that if the topic interests them, they're there. 100% focused and attention, great. Same thing in work. Once they get in a flow in something, totally fine. But if it is not a preferred topic, if it is not a preferred subject, if it is not their preference, they may struggle more with attention. Frequently zones out when instructions are being given. Has difficulty refocusing after getting distracted, often losing track of the task. So they may start a task and then they get distracted. So this is something as well with kids with reading. I remember speaking with a mom a couple months ago where she's telling me, my daughter used to love to read. Her daughter has an ADHD diagnosis. And now she doesn't read. And I asked her, is it when the books changed? Is it when the books changed to no pictures, changed to chapter books? And she said, yes. And instantly I was wondering, is it attention? I said, so when she's reading, she goes, and she says, we try to read before bed, and I'll sit there and I go, does she keep interrupting or having all of these other random thoughts that have nothing to do with the book? She's like, yes, all the time. And that is attention. And as we said earlier, I'm going to go back to the definition, is attention is the ability to refocus. It's not the ability to sustain attention, it's the ability to refocus. So I'm going to do an exercise with you in a minute on this one. And you're going to really see how this works. And I would like you to actually think of this girl when she's reading a book, when you're doing this exercise with me, because I help the mom then with some strategies, which I'll go over once I do this exercise with you. I helped her with some strategies to help her daughter with the refocusing, not the sustaining of the focus. So I'll go over with that with you in a minute, but just think about right now, if you or your child has difficulty refocusing after getting distracted, often losing track of the task. That is a true, somewhat true, never, or in the past. Next question or next statement. Struggles to stay focused on task after long periods, even if it's an enjoyable activity. So they can't stay in something for the longest time. You might find this with younger kids. This is huge, where you're like, my kid loves Legos. They love playing with all of these other toys. They can only do it for 2 or 3 minutes, and then they're on to something else. That is an attention thing. Now, that could also be an age thing. Really, really young kids just may not have the ability to have the attention for that long. And over time, that attention might increase. But you might find with some kids, it doesn't. And that is when we can start giving them support. Next one, finds it challenging to maintain focus on multi-step tasks like homework or chores. So when there are multiple steps, homework, so many steps, right? Even just to get your homework sorted. Which books do I need? Have to get all those books, have to get them out. What supplies do I need? Pens, papers, calculator. What do I need? All of those things, that already is just multi-steps to do their homework. And they may forget. Or things even like cleaning a bathroom, right? They might do the sink and think they're done. Or they might do the sink and the toilet and think they're done and forget the bathtub. There's multiple steps to that. And they might find that challenging to maintain their focus on that task. Get distracted by their own thoughts or daydreams, even when they should be listening or working. And that's it, like thought in their daydreams, or they might have these great creative ideas when they should actually be listening or working. And they'll ask you something out of the blue that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. They may have difficulty sustaining attention on people such as parents, teachers, coaches, or siblings. So if they can't keep their attention while you're talking, I have one of my kids does this. I'll be in the middle of a conversation with him, and some of them are deep conversations because I don't do surface very well. And in the middle, he's like, oh, the cat's upstairs. I'm going to go pet him. I'm like, whoa, did you just hear what I was talking about? You're talking about something important here. So I've realized with him that there's certain limits on how long and which conversations he can sustain his attention to me, because going up to pet the cat just randomly comes out of nowhere. And that happens at school too, or with coaches, and they can be seen like a problem child when in fact, they're struggling to refocus themselves on that conversation or that person. Often seems in their own world, not focused on current tasks. You might ask them something and they're just dancing and flitting around and totally in their own world. And we do not ever want to squash these kids. These kids are going to change the future. Their creativity, the way that they view things is so important. The thing is helping them with being able to refocus so that when they do have these amazing creative ideas that are going to change the world, that they can refocus enough on it enough times in order to take action on it and send it out into the world. The next one is frequently asks, what did you say? Or needs instructions clarified after they've been given. Or they often ask, when will this be over? Or when are we going to be done when you're doing something? Tends to hyper focus on sounds such as chewing, tapping, that stress them out and distract them from the main focus. I was saying this earlier with writing tests, doing schoolwork, when other kids or their sounds reverberating in the classroom. So with these, true, somewhat true, never, or in the past. And last set of questions. Easily distracted by external noises or movements when they need to concentrate. That kind of goes into this hyper focus, except the hyper focus thing is really stressing them out. Whereas this one here is they're not stressed out. They're just distracted by external noises. Oh, there's a bird out the window. Oh, did you see that? Oh, somebody just walked into the classroom, all these things that really break that concentration in them. Frequently hyper focuses on one activity, making it difficult to shift attention elsewhere. So they get so focused on something they cannot shift, that hyper focus. They struggle to change tasks because they're so hyper focused. They need to finish what they're doing because they're so hyper focused. They cannot think of anything else. My one son gets into this with books. Once he is deep in a book, he keeps disappearing. Like you'll ask him to help with something and he'll do a little bit of it and then he disappears. And you'll find him in his room with a book. You'll get him to come back and he'll disappear again with his head in that book. And he can't shift his attention anywhere else until that book is done. Often misses important details by focusing too much on smaller aspects of the specific details. And has difficulty following conversations with multiple speakers or background noise presence. Do they really struggle to focus their attention on the person who's speaking? And they're just able to hear. So this could be a child that really has phenomenal hearing, where they struggle to follow conversation. So you may find that this is something where you're doing the dishes and they can't hear you speak. There's so many noises around that they can't filter, they can't focus on your voice. So this happens in a classroom too, where they don't hear a teacher. So you might think that this child needs hearing test, and they might have a hearing test, and the hearing test is fine. And the struggle is that they're struggling as to where to put their attention, that their hearing is so good, they hear so many things, and they're struggling to bring their attention to the sound or the noise that they need to be focusing on. All right, so those are all the questions from the intake form. The intake form, the link is below. So in the podcast, it's in the show notes. If you're listening to this in the support circle, it will be in the lesson here, and in the support circle, I have this intake form everywhere. So if you could fill out the intake form, these were solely the attention questions. We have questions, I have questions in it for every single executive functioning skill, the kindling skills, the log skills, and the flame skills. And so filling that out is really eye-opening to seeing where you fit on that, where are either yours or your child's executive functioning struggles. Okay, we're at the exercise that I was talking about. If you're listening to this, I am actually using a slide deck right now, and I have this circle that's going in and out that we can visually see. What I'm going to do is I am going to ask you for the next minute to focus solely on breathing in and out. Doesn't matter to me if it's nose, if it's mouth, however it is. Focus solely on the inhale and the exhale for 1 minute. Okay, I am going to time this. Let me get out my clock timer. 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, we are going. So focus in and out and nothing else. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So, how did you guys do? What happened when you were breathing in and out? Were you able to completely focus, 100% on just inhaling and exhaling? I know I couldn't. And I don't know of anybody that actually can. And the reason is that all of these other thoughts come into our head. But what most of you did, most likely, is that you refocused yourself back to the breathing. So you had a thought that went away or that went outside and you brought it back, you refocused. That is attention. You bring your focus back to where you're supposed to be focusing on. It's never about how long you stay on intention. It is about how you're able to refocus when your attention goes elsewhere. Good attention is the ability not about sustaining attention for long periods of time. It's about refocusing when distractions hit. And improving attention isn't about keeping your attention steady for long periods of time. It's about building the skill to refocus when our minds naturally wander. So if we go back to this child that I was saying about reading, and this is what I was telling the mom. Now our skill is to help this child to learn how to refocus. It's not sustained attention. It's not like, oh, here, you need to read for 20 minutes now. And I need you to read this book so that you can learn how to sustain attention on reading this book and just don't talk. That's not how it works at all. We need to think, where is this child? And their attention keeps going. We need to teach them to refocus. So this is one of the things that I teach in the support circle when I go into frameworks and teaching how to really help a child with attention. This is a framework. And now I'm using this framework on reading at the moment, but it could be anything, anything. First, we teach kids about a flashlight. And we teach them that the flashlight is where we want your thoughts to be. So if we're talking about reading, we want their flashlight to be on the book. So our plan, now here's the thing about plans. These kids can't handle really large plans. They can't make up plans themselves. They can't follow the plans themselves. We are not expecting that this child is going to fully follow this plan. We are going to guide them. Okay, because we're not at the planning executive functioning skill yet. We have so many foundational pieces to build until they get there. So we're going to tell them our plan is that you're going to read or do whatever this activity is that you want, that you're choosing based on the child. We're going to get you to read for 1 minute, maybe 1.5 minutes. We're going to choose a time that we know that they cannot focus in. We're going to choose a time that we know is going to be hard for them. But we don't want it to be too hard. So we're not going to pick 15, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. We're going to pick something that's still achievable. So we're going to set a timer for a minute, and we're going to tell them to try to read. And every time that you see that their thoughts go somewhere else, you're going to say to them, hey, where should your flashlight be shining? In a nice, kind, caring, curious, compassionate way, not in a judgmental way. This is helping execute a plan way. Hey, where are your thoughts right now? Where's your flashlight should be shining? Different things. You'll find some kids don't like to be said, where's your flashlight shining? Someone will be, where are your thoughts right now? It's a framework. We need to adapt this for this child. And let them know before you start this. So you tell them that's what we're going to do. And let them know that you've picked a time frame that you believe you're going to have to ask this question multiple times. And that's okay, because we're not practicing on you being perfect. We're practicing the refocusing. So we want this to happen. Let them know that ahead of time too. That's so important so the child doesn't feel they're failing every time you're asking them this question. And then you're going to visually walk them through this. The visual is very important, because if they don't visually walk them through this, then they're not going to be able to imprint that plan in their mind. So go, okay, what are we going to do first? We're going to open the book. And then I'm going to start a timer. So imagine, see my timer? I'm going to start it. And then you're going to read. And anytime I see your eyes wandering or your head move away from the page or you start speaking, I'm going to ask you, where are your thoughts right now? Or where should your flashlight be shining? And you can say, which would you like me to ask? And they'll let you know. So you walk through it. Okay, that's what I'm going to ask you. All right. And what are you going to do when I ask you the question? You're like, I'm going to bring my thoughts back. Right. And what if you follow the paper with your finger or something? Will that help you so that when you do lose track and say you stop looking, what if we know that your finger is probably going to stop when it will help me know when your thoughts go somewhere else. And it'll help you refocus back faster, help you notice where you were on the page. And they'll either say yes or no. And whatever they want, you'll do, and you'll follow that. Okay, let's try it now. And then you try it. You set it for the minute. And you see, and every time that their finger stops, or their head moves, or they start speaking, you say, hey, where are your thoughts supposed to be right now? Where's your flashlight? Yeah. Okay, good job. Show me. And you ask them, show me, and they do it. And then once you've done the minute, you say, how do you feel about that? And they might tell you at the start, it was hard. Like, yeah, it's hard to refocus. Do you see? Like, you start helping them understand, do you see why when you move to bigger books, you move to books without pictures to keep your attention on the page, that it became hard for you to keep refocusing to the page? You have to keep finding where on the page did you start losing focus and get back to that even. That's a hard step. And they can start seeing it and seeing how it is happening and how that attention is getting out of that way. And yeah, and you start helping them with that first. That's all you do. And when they get to that minute and they might say to you, can we try a minute and a half? Can we try 2 minutes? Say, yeah, absolutely. And if they find that they really don't like doing this with reading, try something else. Try another activity that they like to do. Try playing a board game with them and do it with a board game. Do it with something that's fun that they like to do. Make it really fun with them. Make it a preferred task. Don't make this something like setting the table or doing the dishes or doing their homework, because those are tasks they don't like to do. We always start with preferred tasks. Remember this cognitive ladder I spoke of? That cognitive ladder, we need to get them up that first step. So these are things that I teach in the support circle. These are things that in the support circle that I am building up over time, more frameworks, more ways to help with the executive functioning skills based on what works with different clients of mine, what parents are finding is working. Parents come up with some really amazing creative ideas, and we add those into the support circle as well. The support circle, I am just opening up. It is all of the things that I do with my one-on-one clients, and I have a founding membership fee right now. So as I'm building all this out and answering your questions, then you guys are all getting the founding membership fee. So definitely come and join us in there, and we will start working more and more on these skills as we go through. All right. So with attention, as you see, it's really, really about encouraging the moments where they lose focus, because that's what creates the perfect opportunity to practice refocusing, not sustained attention, refocusing. Every time that you bring back their attention, you're helping them refocus. They're strengthening a skill, a base foundational kindling skill that they are going to need for decision-making. They are going to need for time-sensitive pacing, for self-correcting, for planning, for being able to do their homework, hand in their homework, get ready in the morning, pack their bag. This is a base foundational skill that they need to pay attention in class, to basically do everything that they need in life. And so it's very important to make sure that this skill of being able to refocus is that you're giving it support and helping to strengthen it, in order for you to then start building up onto higher level skills. So important and so key to really be focusing on these base level skills. I teach all of this is in the support circle. I even have parents in the support circle from my one-on-one clients, not necessarily to learn how to do this with their kids, but to understand more about their kids so that it's less frustrating for you as a parent as well. And for you to see how many other parents as well are going through this. It's super important for us to not be alone in this. I know when I was learning all of this, it was so lonely. Before I learned this was even lonelier because I felt like I was the only one who had a child struggling and no one knew how to help them. So we're here to support you. Join the support circle if you're not already in it. And stay tuned. In the next lesson, the next podcast episode, we are going to be working on verbal working memory, which is essential for holding and using information that we hear, such as directions, names, numbers, for your basic math, basic reading. For phonics, that is what verbal working memory is for. It's so important. And kids that struggle with verbal working memory often ask, what did you say? Can you repeat that? Struggle with phonics. And we're going to be going through my list of questions for that as well from my intake form and everything in the next lesson. So I will see you there.